Hello and welcome to all of our attendees. We're here at the third day of the Pharma IQ Smart Lab Global Academy. So we're going to get started in the next minute or so, so please just get comfy. We'll just wait for everybody to log in, so we'll get started at 1 minute past the hour. Hello and welcome all to the third day of Pharma IQ Smart Labs Global Academy, which is an online series featuring live interactive webinars and on-demand sessions, all focusing on excellence within the digital realm in the lab. All registrants will receive links to the day sessions via email, and the resource center on the left of your screens has the agenda, which contains all the links to the sessions for the entire week. It also has the links to the sessions for today. Monday and Tuesday, we examined ways to further the potential of your lab. If you missed it, yesterday's sessions will be made available on demand shortly. Today, we've been looking at data management, standards and compliance. Hopefully you've taken a look at some of our on-demand sessions already. We've got Paul James Jones, lead IT business consultant from Boehringer Ingelheim, with his session on repurpose and recycle, getting the most from your archived data. And also we've had Burkhard Schaefer, lead architect at IML on data standards. So take a look at those after today's live session, which is brought to you by Aeris, and it's looking at cold chain data monitoring and IoT connectivity, more than just temperature control. Human lives can be at stake when blood supplies and pharmaceuticals are part of cargo. Natural disasters, custom delays, and infrastructure complications are things that often jeopardize the safety of these critical shipments. Research notes that the cold chain market will total $13.4 billion this year, and by 2021 it could stand at around $16.6 billion. The value of temperature-controlled pharmaceuticals being transported is also predicted to grow by 10.7% this year. So the importance of executing the supply chain right the first time is only going to rise. Large financial losses have hit pharma firms because of temperature excursions. It can take a matter of moments for a medicine to slip out of its permitted storage temperature. It's common for a typical excursion investigation to take more than 40 labor hours across multiple departments within an organization. Reducing that number by as little as 10% across each investigation can of course result in hundreds of thousands of dollars saved for an organization. To combat these excursions and transport medicine safely and compliantly, end-to-end monitoring and easy and real-time access to data is critical. In this session today, we'll be looking at how visibility and data practices within temperature-controlled logistics have been revolutionized by the Internet of Things and machine-to-machine communications. So before we start, I'd just like to remind everyone that this is an interactive platform, so feel free to ask questions anytime in your Q&A chat boxes. We will have a time for Q&A at the end of today's session. So that brings us to our first poll, which has come up onto your screens. Our first question here is, what is your company's current use for remote monitoring? First answer, we don't have one. Second, to manage location and/or temperature safety. Third, looking to implement in the next 6 to 12 months, or other use case. So if you could please click on your answer and then on the submit button on your screens, we will then advance to the results in just a moment to see how the findings have emerged. So again, our question is, what is your company's current use for remote monitoring? Please enter your answers now. Just another reminder, we're on the first poll of this session. If you haven't already, please enter your answer by clicking on the answer and then the submit button. Our question is, what is your company's current use for remote monitoring? Last couple of seconds. Don't forget to click on the submit button as well so they come through to us. Okay, so I'll advance through to the results. Okay, so they should be coming up on your screens now. So the most popular answer is that we're looking to implement in the next 6 to 12 months. And then we have don't have one and other use case as the next answers there. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to pass over to our next speaker. We have Evan Whitelock, so he works in product marketing at Aeris. So over to you, Evan.
Great, thank you very much. And before we jump on, a couple quick thoughts on the results of the poll here. Very interesting to see that the majority of you are looking to implement in the next 6 to 12 months, and that's great to see, especially for the purposes of what we'll be able to cover today and what we will be covering, to really kind of show as you look to implement a solution, the benefits of cellular connectivity and what they can provide to these types of cold chain monitoring solutions and temperature control environments and so forth. So, we'll certainly talk to some of the challenges that you'll see when implementing a solution, and then how cellular connectivity can help solve some of those challenges. Before we do, I just want to take just a minute or two real quick to kind of let you know who Aeris is, for those of you who are not familiar with what we do and why we're talking about this concept or these concepts today. So we are an IoT solutions provider. We provide IoT connectivity, IoT platforms, and IoT application services as well. We're a global company and providing those solutions. As far as our connectivity offering goes, it comprises of our the connectivity that we sell, but also our connectivity management platform. And we have several customers today in this space who are working through we're helping them work through the challenges of maintaining a reliable cold chain monitoring solution and how to best leverage cellular networks to accomplish that. Our headquarters are in San Jose, California, but we do have offices around the world. And a couple numbers just to put in context really quickly. Today we have operational support and operational reach into over 190 countries. We actually support over 10 million connected devices on our networks today, which actually places us as the top 10 worldwide in terms of IoT units that are under management. And our systems are processing over 1 billion IoT events per day, everything from actual messages being delivered to registration events and so forth. So just wanted to really quickly set the stage for those of you who are not sure or did not know about Aeris and what we do. But now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into the topics that we'll cover today that you guys are interested in. More broadly, we're going to talk about how cellular, in cellular IoT connectivity, optimizes cold chain operations and how that can simplify a lot of the challenges that you'll experience when looking to deploy a reliable cold chain monitoring solution. The first topic that we're going to talk about is global connectivity, and how cellular networks can be used to achieve connectivity especially on a global scale, given that oftentimes devices will be on shipments or tracking shipments that will be traveling great distances. And so we'll cover how cellular technology can enable a reliable connection and constant contact regardless of where those devices are going. Next, we're going to talk about cost and manageability and how cellular networks can be managed to keep operational costs low. We know that this industry is a low margin industry, and it's given the cost concerns around hardware and around services and so forth. It's difficult to get your margins and maintain your margins if you don't have capabilities to reduce your operational costs. And so we're going to spend talking about how cellular networks, cellular platforms can help keep operational costs as low as possible to ensure profitability with these solutions. And before we jump into, a quick overview of the last topic we'll cover, I do want to stop very quickly and do one more poll. So if you wouldn't mind, please take a second to answer this poll, which is, we'd love to see what features are most important, to your connectivity solution. If you're not currently bundling connectivity with any monitoring solution, that's fine. We'd love to see that too. But we'd also love to see if troubleshooting is a capability that you really need as part of your connectivity solution. Deprovisioning or canceling devices is another one, and then just generally lowering operational costs. So, please let us know which one of these is most important to you, if applicable, and take a second to answer this poll question very quickly, and we will jump back in just a minute. Okay, just one last reminder to go ahead and click submit to submit your poll. It'll take another 10 minutes or so, and then we will see the results. Okay. So it looks like a healthy mix of being able to troubleshoot units in the field, ability to deprovision and cancel devices, and then reducing operational costs. And given what we understand, our expertise in this industry and the customers we work with, those are common. Obviously, why we put them on the poll in the first place. But it's good to see that there's a mix of those three, and seeing that operational costs, keeping those low is important, is directly in line with a lot that we've experienced. So very good. Because that ties into the third point that we'll cover today, which is being able to support devices and troubleshoot when connectivity issues do arise, and minimizing the costs associated with connectivity issues and connectivity management. So those will all come together, and we'll see exactly how those are utilized in that final category there. So. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the first topic, which is global connectivity, and what to look for when figuring out how to connect devices on a global scale, and considering partners who can provide some of those global capabilities. So one of the benefits of cellular connectivity is that it is global, and it is reliable, and sees a high quality of service on a global scale. Other technologies which are used in this industry, maybe it's RFID tags, when shipments are leaving a location and arriving and so forth, certainly don't have the global reach or the global widespread coverage that cellular connectivity has. And so cellular gives the largest reasonable connectivity option, and I say that because obviously satellite connectivity and satellite updates are another possibility. However, those are traditionally very expensive, and especially when compared to cellular. So, when looking at what technology gives you the best bang for your buck, if you will, to ensure your devices remain connected, especially on a global scale, cellular connectivity can solve a lot of the coverage challenges, given that coverage is, and maintaining coverage is such an important aspect to these solutions. The next benefit of cellular is the reliability. And now, one caveat is that obviously no single wireless technology is 100% perfect or 100% reliable. Wireless connectivity, kind of by definition, is almost, it's going to have, some connectivity issues from time to time. However, cellular is a relatively reliable connection, and it does do a very good job of making sure devices remain connected wherever they are going. Which is, certainly another benefit of cellular connectivity. And then finally, security. In today's world, IoT solution security is an increasing threat and something that is top of mind for most solution deployers. A lot of the recent, notable hacks that you've read about on the internet, or, websites that have been taken down and so forth, a lot of those breaches have been caused by IoT devices that were working on unsecure networks, open Wi-Fi networks, for example. Cellular is by design secure and regulated, and so it can solve a lot of security challenges and it increase the level of security of a solution, especially for in these cases sometimes these shipments that are being tracked and being monitored are very high value assets, and so maintaining security around the information that's being collected from those, specifically location. If it's certain medicines obviously are very, very expensive, very high value assets, and so maintaining security around that solution so that it remains connected and the information is secure. Cellular does a very good job of achieving that. So, and I know covered a lot of the high level topics, but and how the rest of this webinar will work is that I'm going to bring in my colleague Marcus Aponte next. He is one of our very experienced sales representatives who works hand to hand with our customers in this space specifically to solve a lot of these challenges. And so he's going to give a couple use cases throughout this to illustrate examples of what we're seeing in the real world and how these concepts can be applied in real life. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Marcus.
Sure, thanks, Evan. Appreciate everybody's time today. So wanted to highlight a specific customer of ours, TrackerSense. They're in an interesting industry as it relates to cold chain monitoring and supply chain monitoring. They're based in the UK, and they are in the pallet and cargo tracking space with essentially an industry-leading and proprietary software to measure against location, temperature, lighting exposure, shock, and pressure. And that's really to protect and monitor their precious cargo that's considered a high-value asset, such as food, crops, pharmaceutical, life sciences, and so on, and being able to safely transport and monitor that transportation from point A to point B. And for example, it could originate in Guadalajara, Mexico, and be their destination point of Shanghai, China. And as a result, they're crossing several borders, regions, and utilizing several carriers. And what TrackerSense was looking for, they needed a single provider for global cellular data on a single pane of glass versus working with multiple vendors and management centers. You take, for example, here in the United States, you've got Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, and T-Mobile. That's 4 different platforms, 4 different salespeople, 4 different invoices that you'd have to manage. And that's just here for the United States. When you go abroad and internationally, you've got companies like Telefonica and Vodafone. Well, that's now 6 carriers, 6 APNs you'd have to manage. So they were looking for a trusted advisor who can essentially support multiple region or multi-region deployments versus trying to research and do this in-house. Now, these folks are in the tracking business. They have zero interest in being a connectivity expert. So the value that Aeris brings to the table for these folks is they're able to leverage our various billing triggers, which we're going to talk a little bit further down, and allow their devices to be tested and activated to ensure that they're passing data and sensor data to their platform, as well as their dashboard, and connecting to our network. And ultimately, as part of their final assembly, they can put it back on their shelf prior to customer deployment and suspend the bill before it actually kicks off. So this way, they're not generating a bill until it's truly in their customer's hands. So again, by consolidating that, they're able to have a single SIM, single SKU, and 1 APN to manage their devices across 500 plus mobile network operators with coverage in 190 plus countries. They're able to optimize their costs and their control their monthly expenditures, as well as by leveraging our billing, rating, and monetization engine. So back to you, Evan.
Great, thank you, Marcus. Jumping into the next topic now, we want to touch a little bit on how cellular networks and cellular platforms that come with cellular networks are able to help improve visibility basically throughout the entire life cycle of these solutions. And so, visibility and increasing the visibility ultimately is what's going to help you reduce your costs. The more you know about what's going on, the more you can make changes to reduce those costs. And so, having visibility into device usage, setting alerts around behavior so that you can prevent overage charges, for example, being able to control the end-to-end solution and only pay for these devices when you're actually using them, when they're actually actively tracking something. and not paying for them when they're not, for example. The real world use case that Marcus is going to walk through next is going to touch on that and how cellular platforms can manage that. And ultimately being able to, increase the operational efficiency, streamlining production to make it so that there is, no on-site activations needed, to make it so that costs are controlled throughout the life cycle. Being able to, to control and manage costs throughout the life cycle, especially even once it's deployed or being reused or repurposed. A lot of these benefits are only made available with the connectivity management platform, not seen with other technologies. And so, that is, again, one of the benefits of cellular is the management capabilities, the cost control capabilities, especially hearing from the attendees that lowering operational costs is important, and it's very important, especially for this industry. A lot of those capabilities are only made available with the connectivity management platform that can give that visibility and deliver that control. And so again, now I'm going to hand it back to Marcus to talk through a use case and how management platforms can be used in a real, cold chain monitoring example, to show how they can help reduce costs, and keep those operational costs low. So, Marcus, with that, back to you.
Sure. Thanks, Evan. So what I'll do is walk you through sort of the supply chain or the life cycle of your device and SIM that's being deployed in the field for remote monitoring and remote access to your devices and your high-value assets for tracking. So when we ship your SIMs to your warehouse, they come in a pre-activated yet not a billable state to allow an opportunity, again, using that same concept of our billing triggers, to be able to test the device for connectivity to our network, as well as the capturing the sensor data to the platform to ensure the devices work and it's part of your final assembly or kitting process before it's actually in the field in your customer's hands. So you can put that device back on the shelf for up to 6 months or less of time, and that's based on a couple different triggers that are predefined behind the scenes, where you have X amount of usage, call it 5 kilobytes, 10 kilobytes, or up to 6 months of usage with up to the, that data threshold before the bill kicks on. So you're truly not paying for the data until it's actually in your customer's field or in the customer's hands. And as I walk you through this, it's passing data on average. The average trip time could be anywhere from 14 to 28 days, sometimes 30 days, depending upon the type of cargo and the use case and the business model of your customer's application and what we're tracking. So at the end of that trip, you can do one of two things. You can suspend the device or cancel the device. I do recognize and am mindful of the supply chain and the monitoring, cold chain monitoring industry, where there's a very high percentage that of these asset tags are not being returned, though we're starting to see some companies offering an incentive or a rebate to try and repurpose or pull back and recover their asset tags, including the SIM cards. So as a result, you have two options. One, you can suspend the SIM, and that'll suspend the billing for a duration of up to 6 months and allow you an opportunity to repurpose the SIM. Or secondly, you can cancel the device if you believe that you're never going to get that SIM back or the asset tag. But in the off chance you do receive it back, in either one of those scenarios, you do have the ability to go ahead and re-provision and repurpose that device, at a later time. And where, again, on the suspend state, you've got up to 6 months, and if on a canceled state, you can go ahead and repurpose it at any point, and that'll restart that clock again for up to 6 months of unbilled usage until it's actually exceeded a specific threshold. That being said, I will pass it back to Evan.
Great, thank you, Marcus. So, again, kind of a real world example in, how some of these, management capabilities can work in cold chain monitoring settings and to help automate those supply chains, which is a very material, way that cellular platforms can help reduce those operational costs and help keep those, minimize the total cost of ownership of this subscription and supporting this solution. And so, the last thing we want to touch on, when looking for, who to partner with, to look at, cellular connectivity and how that can help your cold chain monitoring solution. Look for partners that have, who can help you and who have experience in helping customers who have been in similar positions. Some ways that we found, where that really make a difference to these types of solutions are, around support capabilities. Mark has kind of alluded to a concept that is very important, and which is that, you are building solutions that are, getting information from these shipments, making sure that the materials that are being transported are, in the right temperature, or are, being able to be controlled remotely and so forth. But you are and don't need to be an expert on cellular connectivity. And so finding partners that can provide that support to help, resolve those issues for you, help you manage that connectivity more efficiently, help keep those costs low, is going to go a long way in helping your solution remain successful, in scale effectively. And some of those capabilities can be in self-service troubleshooting tools, giving you the ability, empowering you with capabilities to manage connectivity and keep those operational costs low without having to go reach out and get somebody to help you. Being able to catch issues and troubleshoot those issues and resolve those issues yourself is ultimately the fastest way to go about resolving those connectivity issues, which can be very costful, and impactful to your bottom line. Catching those issues early, having the tools, alerts, and troubleshooting tools to be able to catch them and fix them is ultimately what's going to help go a long way in making your solution more efficient. And again, it's around the empowerment so that you have the tools that you need, and can be shown how to use those tools effectively. Providers that can help you figure out the best ways to optimize your solution, the best ways to manage that connectivity, and the best ways to scale your solution effectively is ultimately what's going to lead to that operational efficiency. A lot of it with these management platforms that Cellular can give you, which not every other technology has the capabilities to deliver. And so, I know that we've got questions, and we wanted to leave some time for questions, at the end here, and wrap up a little bit early, because I think we able to cover a lot of good concepts and want to make sure we can get to your questions. But, just to recap, wanted to spend just a couple minutes reviewing and kind of summarizing what Cellular can do for cold chain solutions. And it's really around the ensuring that Cellular, that the devices stay connected. Cellular is available globally. Again, kind of the best bang for your buck in terms of what's going to give you the global connectivity for wherever these devices are going to wherever these shipments need to be tracked. Again, satellite does provide great cost, great coverage benefits, but at a very expensive cost. And given the business model around cold chain solutions and tracking solutions, those satellite costs are not often maintainable, and they can really increase your costs to the point where you are no longer profitable. Cellular enables the coverage while also keeping connectivity costs reasonable, especially when combined with the ability to manage those costs. Looking at cellular management platforms that come along with cellular connectivity that are not available with so many other different types of tracking solutions out there. The ability to understand what devices are doing on the network at all time. Obviously, that there's an intended usage profile for these devices, how much they're supposed to communicate, how often they're supposed to communicate, and your business model is going to be built around what those anticipated costs are. But there are issues that arise. Sometimes devices send more data than they're supposed to. Sometimes they don't send enough data, and they're not performing the way they're supposed to. Either side can have impacts on your costs, either with costly overage charges if you're not aware of, say, a firmware bug that's increased the device's activity and therefore results in great overage charges, or in terms of lost revenue with your customers. If the devices are not performing the way they're supposed to, if they're not connecting, if they're not sending the information, and something happens to the assets or the materials being shipped, that can result in unhappy customers and ultimately a loss in revenue. So really, being able to manage connectivity, understand when devices are performing the way that they're not supposed to, making sure devices are performing the way they are supposed to, and controlling costs throughout the life cycle. Again, going back to the use case that Marcus had walked through, only paying for connectivity when you actually are using connectivity can be have a material impact on your operational costs and your connectivity costs. Being able to have live connected devices throughout the supply chain, but only pay for them when they are actually being used for their intended purpose and actually tracking something is very important. And being able to manage that on a platform is critical, and something that really only is available with cellular management platforms. And then moving to the last bucket, which is troubleshooting and support, right? Using partners that have been there and done that, who can extend expertise, who can help you resolve issues and give you tools so that you can troubleshoot and resolve issues on your own. Management platforms and tools that come with those management platforms allow you to, if a device is not connecting properly, troubleshoot that device in real time so that you don't have to open a trouble ticket and wait to hear back. Especially if it's a very high value set of materials or goods that are being tracked, and you need to make sure that you can get that device back online so that it is visible and so that it is protected. All those capabilities are available in management platforms, and again can really make the difference in terms of whether or not your solution is able to be managed, able to remain cost effective, and whether or not you are able to be profitable, especially at scale. So. With that, want to get to some of your questions and go through and expand on any concepts that we want to take another look at. So, I will go ahead and pass it back so that we can start going through some of the questions that we have.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks. I think you touched on some really key points when transporting temperature-sensitive medicines. Reliable visibility really is key, and having real-time access to that also when it comes to excursions. Action needs to be taken as quickly as possible in order to reduce the chances of product loss. So looking at cell and gene products, really sensitive products, these sorts of tools can really save costs indeed. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so we're now at the Q&A section of today's session. Please do enter your questions via the chat box. Ask anything that you thought was maybe quite interesting, anything you'd want to know more about. It's great to have expertise right here, so do make use of it and send your questions through. And we've got a couple through at the minute, so we'll get started with those. Okay, so question 1, do you support 2G both here and within the rest of the world?
Yeah, great question, and I'll go ahead and answer first, and then Marcus can chime in and add some more color. We do support 2G, both in we're U.S.-based headquartered company, and that's where I'm sitting right now. So both here and the rest of the world, I assume means the United States and the rest of the world. So yes, we do support 2G. Here in the U.S., obviously. 2G networks don't have the longest longevity here in the U.S., and AT&T has already turned off their 2G network. T-Mobile and some of the smaller carriers are still maintaining, at least for the next few years, although timelines around that are not 100% in terms of when they will turn it down. But obviously, given the attractiveness of lower cost 2G hardware, especially for this industry where there are a lot of hardware cost sensitivities, it is very important to maintain low cost hardware for these solutions. So explains the attractiveness of 2G, and so we do support that today for as long as the 2G networks will be around in the U.S. Fortunately, in most parts of the rest of the world, 2G connectivity is going to be around for longer than it is in the U.S. Likely through to the middle of the next decade or so. And so, that is still by and large a reliable and a usable technology for deployment, especially in this industry. One of the benefits that this industry has is that these devices typically are not deployed for a long time. It's not, for example, a device that needs to be deployed on a fixed location for the next 10, 15 years or so. They are moving around, and they are, in some cases, some business models more disposable. So, given the life cycle that these devices typically see, 2G is still an option. And so for as long as the 2G networks will be around, and again in the U.S. and then also globally, we will continue to support those and continue to provide guidance as to when it might make sense to look to additional technologies like LTE-M, for example, which will combine longevity of LTE-M with lower cost hardware. So you know, a long way of saying yes, and certainly able to support those, you know, for the foreseeable future globally. So, Marcus, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Not beyond what you've already covered. Thank you, though.
Yeah, sorry to steal all that from you.
Right, okay, so our next question. Do you have the ability to prioritize carriers in certain markets where one carrier has better coverage versus another?
Yeah, and so I'll go ahead and take a first stab at this one as well. And so, you know, ultimately, yes. You know, one of the benefits of cellular is that there is some additional controls, and with the way that we've designed our solution, we do have some, you know, some more advanced capabilities around that. And so, you know, really what it's going to come down to is, you know, as you know, you go deploy your solution and you know, you figure out what's going to make the most sense for your business, is making sure that devices connect to the lowest cost carrier your priority, or do you need to make sure that it remains connected regardless of the cost? And so, you know, with Global SIMs and with the SIM that we provide, we've got some flexibility there to be able to optimize and pick and choose based on what you need.
Yeah, and you know, to expand on that same question, so we have what's called an unsteered type SIM for our global setup, or global SIM, which essentially gives us full autonomy across all of our available mobile network operators around the world. So specific to our global SIM, we have access and provide access to approximately 500 operators, and allowing us the ability to pick and choose that makes the most sense in any given market or region as you go around the world, where some providers have a weaker or limited signal versus another. So we're allowed to manipulate that list based on some of the other providers that are out there where they have a steered SIM, essentially limiting their control and visibility into the network at the carrier-to-carrier interconnect level to be able to pick and choose what providers are preferred over the other.
Okay, just a reminder to please keep entering in your questions. For those of you that might have joined us a little late, we're in the Q&A section of today's session. You can enter any questions that you have in the chat box. Okay, so you were mentioning about paying for visibility when you're using it. My next question here is, do you offer pay-per-use plans?
So, Marcus, since I answered the other two first, I'll let you go ahead and take this one first, and then I'll add anything if I need to.
Sure thing. So the answer in short, yes, we do offer pay-per-use plans, especially as it's related to the cold chain monitoring and supply chain monitoring industry. It's a very, very relevant topic where you want to pay for the data that you've truly used versus buying a bundled package. We see both scenarios in this case for these specific applications where you're really looking for a pipe to track from point A to point B and breadcrumb it as it goes from location to location, and you only want to pay for that data that you've truly used versus a bundled option. So we do offer custom and flexible plans from as little as pay-as-you-go, or a bundled fashion for as little as 50 kilobytes or 100 kilobytes of data that goes all the way up to 30 gigabytes, depending upon what region you're in and what carrier technology that you're leveraging on a worldwide scale. With that being said, I will pass it back to Evan.
Sure. Yeah, no, and as I expected, there's, you know, you were able to answer that one very well. Not much more for me to add. You know, I think in general that's a great model for this industry, especially given the usage profiles and the usage behavior, I should say. And so, you know, absolutely understand the question, and I'm sure that, you know, offline Marcus would be happy to share more information about what that rate plan would look like. But in short, yeah, absolutely, we can support that.
Great. Next question. How mature is your organization in embracing IoT Internet of Things?
Okay. You know, I would like to, you know, probably want to understand more of the context with that. If the question is, you know, for Aeris, you know, very, very mature. We've been doing IoT for a very long time, even well before it was IoT. And so, you know, we you know, look at what we do today. We serve, you know, IoT. We provide IoT solutions in in a very, very wide range, pretty much all verticals. And especially as IoT grows, more verticals continue to explore the potential and continue to adopt IoT solutions there. The fact that we are managing over 10 million IoT devices today, I think, does speak to our success there and our maturity there. And again, since we've been, company was originally founded in 1992 and supporting IoT type solutions, and even well before that name or that buzzword existed, we've continued to be a pioneer and a leader in that space. Certainly mature in IoT.
Great stuff. Please do keep entering in your questions. We're just in the Q&A section of today's webinar. A great chance to ask our experts today for some more information. I've seen a question come in about where a copy of the webinar slides can be located. Today's session will be made accessible on demand shortly, and you'll be notified via email when that's accessible to you. So you'll be notified once you can get access to the slides. Okay, great. Evan, anything else to add in regards to the challenges within IoT? We've got a question here that's asking about the greatest challenges with IoT.
Yeah, I think especially if this is somebody that's that's considering how to best use IoT to accomplish a tracking solution in this space, and one of the challenges is going to be the implementation costs and how to work around those, especially with designing a solution or managing costs associated with maintaining that solution. Which hopefully what we talked about today provided a little bit of clarity around how connectivity costs, for example, can be kept to as low as possible and managed. And obviously there's going to be a cost associated with deploying new solutions and incorporating new technologies and providing those services. But looking for ways to do that as cost effective as possible is probably the largest kind of umbrella challenge in terms of adopting IoT, and especially for this industry. Again, given the cost sensitivities around hardware, around service, in some of which are specific to these types of cold chain monitoring solutions, some of them are not, and so looking to find ways to wherever you can reduce costs is kind of the mentality you need to have to as you work through some of those challenges.
One thing I would like to add around some of the challenges that we're seeing, at least in the field point of view, is the carrier technologies and the evolution of switching from 2G to 3G to LTE and now to some of these next generation technologies, and being able to keep up with some of those changes where some of the modules are supporting versus unsupporting some of the latest in LoRa, LPWA, NB-IoT, and LTE-M. Are becoming more and more relevant for these low power type applications where they need relatively low usage or relatively low bandwidth of data, but being able to support that on a worldwide scale. And how do customers migrate to these next generation technologies? So we like to position ourselves as that trusted advisor to walk them through and help them be proactive as they're deploying their next generation products to help them cope with some of those changes as 2G gets sunset and turned down, specifically here in the United States, and be able to have and walk them through a migration path for those next-gen technologies.
Okay, great. Our next question here wants to know about where it's more education needed in regards to IoT and its role within temperature-controlled logistics.
Yeah, sure, and I think that it almost sounds like a question for the rest of the audience, and where I think more education could be used is especially with this industry, there's a lot of kind of expanding on what Marcus had said, which is there are new technologies coming out that some of them are not exactly clear exactly how they're going to be implemented, when they're going to be available. LTE-M, for example, it is available today in the United States, but when will it be available in a global for a global deployment? How do you go about managing transitions out of 2G and the benefits of 2G hardware into newer LTE technologies that are going to be around for a long time, but may have some more expensive hardware today. And so I think that, that's one of the things that we are actually working on. And I believe in Q2 we'll be having another webinar to address some of those topics. What are the new technologies coming down the road? How can they be leveraged for cold chain monitoring solutions, and how can they be best used? When will they be available? For mass adoption and things like that. I think that are they are certainly high interest topics in IoT today, and something that we will be working to provide some more clarity on in the very near future.
Great stuff, thank you. Okay, so that now marks the end of the Q&A section of this webinar. Over to you guys again. Any closing remarks for our attendees today to walk away with?
No, not for me. Thank you very much for taking the time today. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you about some of these concepts today. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to either myself or to Marcus, or we'd be happy to expand on any concepts further. Again, thank you very much, and look forward to hopefully presenting more to you in the future.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Evan said. We certainly and genuinely appreciate the opportunity to present to you sort of at a high level of the cold chain monitoring industry and supply chain monitoring, and a little bit about the value that Aeris brings to the table. And again, if you folks have any questions, feel free to reach out to either Evan or myself.
Great stuff, thank you. So as mentioned before, all attendees will receive on-demand access to this session and all the other sessions in the Smart Lab Global Academy shortly, and you'll be notified via email once the access is given to you. So that's our live session for today. Thanks again to our speakers. It's been great to hear about how one platform running on a centralized management architecture can make such a difference, and how IoT and machine-to-machine technologies are changing constantly. We've had a look at how device software can become obsolete without updates, which is why a network infrastructure needs to take into account increasing data loads, new device types added, and constant updates. So a lot of food for thought for us, which is great. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be looking at interoperability, data integrity, and security. Our first session starts at 11 a.m. GMT. First thing tomorrow, you'll receive an email notifying you of all the links you need for the day. Otherwise, they are in the agenda, which is on the left-hand side of your screens in the Resource Center. Thanks again to our speakers and for all our attendees. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. GMT.